All right, Johnny, Wunder here, golfwrx.com. I'm here with Titleist Aaron Dill. Aaron, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
It's nice to have you here. Okay, so it's the PGA Show. It's craziness. You're coming off of the tour, right? They're in Kotori right now, but this is sort of a weird week off for you. Talk to me a little bit about, you just mentioned you started when you were 22 with Titleist, now you're 35, 36, 14 years doing this.
Yeah.
How did it start, and how did you end up with a microphone in your face with me?
Well, like any good job, there's a little bit of luck involved. I felt really fortunate to get this opportunity to come to Titleist first. During that process of starting this first job, I was in Bob's office all the time. I was bugging him. I was very persistent. I wanted to learn, and he was gracious enough to let me come in and teach me some things, give me some advice. And during that time, he just said, "Hey, I need somebody on tour. I'd like you to be my guy."
Okay. And then, right now you are, as far as like a grinder and this and that, I've talked to a few players about what you can do with a wedge. Obviously you're working under the best, but you still have to elevate it because the players get different. The wedges change and everything like that. And I've heard some guys tell me that you have an uncanny ability to take even a bad wedge and make it good with the way that you grind and how you listen, which I'm sure you learn from him. Working with those guys, what are you trying to pick up? Like, how are you taking in that information from them to ultimately get it into the wedge?
Well, wedges are personal, and if you're just selling them off the shelf, you don't really understand who your customer is. I have I'm fortunate that every one of my guys on tour are guys that I see all the time, so I learn from them. Guys like Charlie Hoffman, he likes some of his leading edges square. He likes certain things about the sole, the sound that hits to the ground. So I pay attention to that stuff. I take notes. Those are the things that Bob taught me when I first came out. He said, "Hey, be a meticulous note taker." Right. So I start taking a bunch of notes. I'm learning from that experience, but each player is different, so I try and get a good understanding of what those guys want, and I incorporate that into every piece that I make for them.
And you've had the cool opportunity also to come up with guys like JT, Spieth, they're all, maybe a little younger than you are, but you were sort of their guy. You're their Vokey now.
Yeah, we're molding those guys. We're helping them play their best golf. Jordan Spieth's a great example of somebody I met. He was just a high school kid,
right?
And playing at the Byron Nelson. Mr. Dill, great to meet you. Hey, what can I make for you? That relationship started right there.
Right.
And here we are today. He's a major champion, and I get to watch that process unfold, and I get to learn from him. And he's inspiring Bob and I to make the best products in the game.
Well, he's kind of a savant too when it comes to golf IQ and just around the greens. Even when he's playing bad, he seems to still have that part.
Well, you talk about a young man. You just kind of goes through the golf motions, but he really thinks about every single shot. There's a plan, there's a process. There's a reason why he selects the wedges that he selects.
Sure.
And he doesn't change. I make him the same stuff whenever he needs a fresh one, and it's cool. That process always remains the same.
I saw actually the wedges we saw, and Greg took some pictures, I think this week at Kotori, that he actually had some stamping on his wedge. I think either UT stuff or I forget what it was, but he actually stamped some,
we
some verbiage in there.
We put some things on there for him. We try and keep it interesting for him. He's not a flashy guy. He doesn't like that. If it's about his college that he went to, then yes, he's definitely a big fan.
Okay.
And so we try and do those things for him.
It's funny the things that you notice, because you're just used to looking at the same thing every single time. And you're like, oh, he's got writing on his wedge this time. Let's talk about the Wedge Works. 2019, you guys are coming out with this, Vokey Wedge Works. I think you guys have sort of done something similar in the past, but this one seems to be, obviously has a lot of interest in our forums about what it's gonna be and how it started. So Wedge Works, tell me a little bit about what it is, the wedges that are coming out this year, and I think Justin Rose has got one in the bag, and I think Jimmy Walker had one in the bag. What exactly is it?
He does. Yeah, we want to bring what's working on tour to the masses. We want to share that with them. We want to expose our loyal wedge fans to the services that we would give our tour players week to week. So what's working on tour are things that we bring into the Wedge Works program. So certain grinds, certain elements of the wedge, things that how we polish, profiles, things like that. So we want to bring that stuff to our consumers.
So we'll use Jimmy Walker as an example. He's been a Titleist staff guy forever. He seems to switch out his lob wedge quite a bit, like the grind on it anyway, I've noticed. Yep. Specifically him, what would entice somebody like him to change up a grind if he's he's always playing well, and then he'll change up, go from kind of a thin sole, low bounce into a higher bounce with a bigger edge. How does that happen?
Well, Jimmy's very intelligent, and he's not a guy who changes a lot of things, but he's definitely very interested in understanding what's available.
Right.
You know, so a lot of times he'll just text me. He'll say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'll say, "I'm barbecuing a tri-tip right now." I'll say, "Hey, me too."
He likes to barbecue.
Can you send me? Yeah. Grills a lot of meat.
Yeah.
He'll send me a message and say, "Hey, I'm just working at stuff at the club. Can you send me some different bounces? I want to get an understanding of what's available and whether or not it fits my game." So I'll say, "Great. I'll go into the workshop. I'll hand polish the profiles exactly the way he likes.
Right.
Give him a few different sole options. Send it over. Give him a week to test." And then he and I will chat on the phone, or I'll see him at a golf course and I'll say, "What did you learn?"
Right.
And can we make changes? So
see, that's more out of curiosity and just trying to find something new that may or may not. It's not out of a deficiency. He's not struggling. He's literally just trying to find something that may or may not help him.
Jimmy has great hands, and I think for him it's really about understanding what's available, how it benefits his game, and can he justify making that change?
Gotcha.
And he's not one of those guys, I would say, that changes his grinds often, but he is one of those guys that wants to understand.
Okay.
So that's part of that process, and that's how we learn from one another.
Okay, and then last kind of tour question I'll ask you, but you guys deal with a lot of non-Titleist staff players, a ton of them. So, how does that relationship work? I mean, are you servicing those guys just like as you would any other Titleist staff member? Those guys. So I'm assuming your trailer is probably crazy busy.
It's always busy, and for me, I'm fortunate that what I'm focusing on can be put into other competitive bags, and that's something I take a lot of pride in. Is that I'm fortunate I get a great staff of Titleist guys, but there are a lot of guys out there who can play our wedges, and I want them to be part of our Vokey family. So for me, it's all starts in this relationship building process where we talk, we get to know each other. I have a discussion about what they're playing, why, and how do we make it better. So
crazy. Yeah, I saw Patrick Reed had a couple of Vokeys in the bag, and I'm just like, wow, these guys are everywhere.
He's got a few in the bag, and again, I take a lot of pride in that. Those are guys that we want to work with. Those are guys that I'm learning from. Patrick is a very technically sound person. His action's really good, but he's also really he's looking for a certain feel.
Right.
And that's where he and I spend a lot of time talking about what feels right, what feels wrong, how do we fix it.
And he can articulate what he likes and what he doesn't like very well.
He does.
Some guys can't.
No.
Some guys can't do it. Yeah.
No, and that's tough. You have to understand what the wedge language is for the individual. Some guys can't say, it bounces too much, it's not enough, it feels like this, feels like that. They usually say things like, it's sticky, it's slow, it's whatever, and you have to understand what
sticky means.
What that means, and kind of break down that that vocabulary for the guys.
Got it. Okay, so last 3 questions are kind of one-word answers. Favorite golf course to play?
Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach. Second question, loaded question, asked to Bob too. Best wedge player you ever worked with?
Ooh. Probably Mike Weir. He's really good. Very comfortable.
Pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Very comfortable.
Okay. And then what wedges do you have in your bag?
I change them all the time.
Okay.
Believe it or not. So right now I'm using the S grinds. I'm always a 46, 50, 54, 58 guy.
Okay.
I believe in those gaps. As irons get stronger, I got to work with that too. So those are my numbers, but I change grinds often because I want to have a better understanding of what my players are feeling.
Yeah, you kind of should.
I change them all the time. So I'll change them. I'll play for 3 months. I'll take them out. I'll put something else in. And that way when I'm discussing grinds with guys, I can get an understanding of what they're saying and why.
It's mad genius. It's like Vokey. Aaron Dill, Titleist, Johnny Wunder, golfwrex.com. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
We're out of here.